Hello and welcome to another very rainy, grey day in Manchester. At least it isn't stormy today like it was yesterday. I missed that because I was visiting my parents, but apparently there was thunderstorms of biblical proportions and quite a bit of flooding, and a massive sinkhole has appeared in a road near where I live because of a sewer collapse. So there is a massive hole, like nearly the width of the road, which is going to be fun and games for everybody who lives locally because it's one of the main roads in our village. So today I am just out with the dogs. This should be called thoughts that I have when I'm taking my dogs out for a piss. There's one. Where's the other one? Where are you going? Say hello, Pearl. Yeah. I'm just thinking about the social life of objects, specifically pottery. And for me, pottery and ceramics, it's a very tactile thing. You know, I love touching the clay and feeling the finished article, and I love like textures, that sort of thing. I also really love when you throw a cylinder or a bowl or something on the wheel and you get those like spirally throwing marks, throwing rings. And although I might smooth them off on the outside of the piece, I quite often leave them on the inside of the piece, just because I like that kind of evidence of the potter, evidence of the work. And I love it whenever I find a piece of pottery on the Thames foreshore, or archaeologically, and you can see the thrower's finger marks, those throwing rings. I really love that. It sends a bit of a shiver down my spine sometimes. And sometimes you even can see like a thumbprint as well, which is absolutely, well, it's exciting for me. And I'm just thinking about the social life of a pot, and like there's a book I've got by either something Hume, I'll look it up, and it's If These Pots Could Talk, and I often think about that, and also their life story and the different people they interact with, from the creation of the pot to the deposition of the pot, and then in archaeology the recovery of the pot. So it's like this kind of social life, this life story, this journey of the pot. So it starts out in the ground. It's dug out by somebody in clay form, and then the clay is quite often processed. So they'll get rid of all any leaves or debris or whatever, any nasties, and refine. So they might get rid of stones, they might get rid of a lot of the sand in there to make it a finer clay, or they might add something to the clay, and they might like temper or grog to give it certain properties. And then the clay's ready and it's shaped into balls so it can be thrown on the wheel, and then on the wheel it's formed into the item that it's going to be. And then there might be adjustments made or changes made to it. So if it's a jug, there might be a lip created or added on, or handles might be added on. And then it may have some more surface treatments, like it could have terra sigillata applied, which is like a very fine liquid clay that the Romans really loved using. And or you might have like decoration on it. It could be texturing put on it. All sorts of different things can happen even before it goes through its first firing. So then the potter picks it up, puts it in the kiln for the first firing, and the only firing in ancient times. And then in modern times it will be glazed. So the potter then takes it out of the kiln, glazes it, refires it again, and then the pots are ready. And then what happens to them next? Who transports them to the marketplace? Who is the trader that receives them and sells them? Or is it a travelling salesperson? Or is it just a potter working on an estate, providing that estate with the pottery it needs? And then it goes into the hands of the person who owns the pot and uses the pot. And how is that pot used? Say it's a bowl. What's that bowl used for? Is it used for cooking? Is it used for serving? Is it just one person using it, or is it used by a variety of people? You know, in what context is it used? Is it used at a family dinner? Is it used, you know, does it experience any kind of joint dining, like dinner parties? You know, I'm sure the Romans enjoyed dining together as well, as much as we did. And then you think about the pot, you know, where was it stored? Who washed it? All these people in the pot's life. And then eventually, how did it break, or how did it go out of use, or how was it lost? In the case of the shipwrecks that I look at in the Mediterranean, obviously the ship sank, so the pots went down with them. And then they stay there until, well, in a lot of cases they're never found. Or there might just be, the pots could be ground down into a fine powder and used to temper clay to make new pots in some cases. But in most cases, a lot of pots were just basically chucked out into middens, tips, wherever people were disposing of pots, thrown into land. And due to the permanent nature of ceramic material, they survive. You know, if you think about textiles and wood and that sort of thing, that these are a lot more ephemeral materials. They eventually will rot and break down and disappear, but the pot's permanent. And so that's why archaeologists find a lot of pottery and use a lot of pottery, study pottery, to find out more about the site and the people. So then the pots stay where they were disposed of, and then if an archaeologist is lucky, they will find the pot. And then it goes in, sorry, my hand is getting really tight, so I'm switching hands. So then the archaeologist digs it up, and then it might be the same archaeologist or another archaeologist who records that pottery, weighs it, describes it, photographs it, bags it up, and then it will be put somewhere until it maybe is taken out and examined again, and then put into a kind of excavation report. It might be sent off to a pottery specialist for further analysis. The kind of analysis you can do on pots, you can do analysis on the scientific makeup of the pot. It's something called petrology, where you actually get a very thin slice of the pot, and you can look at it under the microscope. You can submit it to chemical testing, you can radiocarbon date, you can find out a lot by scientific analysis of pots, and you know what temperature they were fired to, the kind of conditions. Was it a firing with oxygen, called oxidization firing, or was the oxygen removed, and that's called a reduction firing, and that makes pots go really black. Or was it a combination of both? I find a lot of pottery on the Thames foreshore that has got a black core, but both sides, outer sides, are still like the terracotta-y red, and that is due to uneven firing. So there was some reduction firing, the oxygen was removed, and there was some oxidization. And you see that a lot in earlier firings. Now we've got modern electric kilns that mainly oxidization, and we've even got modern gas kilns where you can do a combination of both. So you can tell that, and then you can tell a lot by the decoration. You know, what decoration is on it. What does it signify? If there's decoration, like, you know, what decorative elements? Is there drawings? Is there wording on it? Is there a stamp, a maker's stamp? That's always really exciting to find. And we can learn things about culture and art from decorative pieces. Even the more kind of mundane everyday courseware, we can learn a lot about the form and the kind of forms that they used. It tells us how they used to serve food and how they used to consume food. And you can also test the ceramic material to find out what was in that ceramic sometimes. So sometimes you can find wine storage vessels, amphoras, and they have got traces of the wine that was in there, so you can test and you can find out where the grapes came from. Might even be pollen in there, so you can find out about the area that the wine was produced, that sort of thing. So there is so much you can find out about the pot and how it was used by looking at it, but also you can get an idea of the people who were around that pot in its lifetime, and I found that really fascinating. And it's almost like a little lens into the past, and I love to, whenever I find a piece of pottery on the Thames foreshore and I pick it up, I quite often will just stand with it for a bit and just hold it and marvel in the fact that I'm like the first person to hold this in however many 100 years. If it's a bit of Tudor cookware, and I'm like, I wonder the name of the person who owned this, wonder the name of the potter, wonder what it was used for. I wonder what kind of food they served in it. Was it like stews? And then it sends me down rabbit holes about what did the Tudors eat? What did they put in the stews? What was their beer like? That sort of thing. And I quite often will turn it over my hands and look for like the signs of the potters, so the potter's marks, the glaze. They used a lot of like copper and lead based glazes in them days because they didn't know that lead was just not a very good thing to be glazing your pots with, but it gives it these fantastic colours. But sometimes you see little imperfections where 2 pots have touched in the kiln, so whoever loaded the kiln, that person who's lost to history, maybe we're in a bit of a rush and 2 of the pots touched, or in the firing they were so close together that glaze dropped from one to the other, and it's all these little stories that you can see in a pot if you look carefully and just consider the little features of it. So yeah, I just wanted to do a video about that because I find that really, really fascinating. And it's frustrating that I will never be able to go, well, this was made by John in the 16th century, say, and he was a potter working in this place and he made this pot for such and such, and it was sold by Peter and he sold it to Mary, and Mary used it to make whatever soup in it, until one day her husband William came home drunk from the pub and was ladling some soup out of it and managed to knock it over, drop it, and then it was thrown into the Thames or thrown into a midden, and that was emptied into the Thames, and it spent the last however many 100 years going up and down the tidal Thames, because the tides, that's why you can go down to the foreshore, because the Thames is tidal. The tide goes in and out several times of the day to the sea, and when the tide goes out, the river level goes right down and you can get onto the foreshore, the bit, you can, it's almost like being on a bit of a beach type thing, and then that's where all these pots end up. And the lower the tide, sometimes we get really low tides, the more exciting it is, because it uncovers part of the riverbed that you don't normally see. So yeah, that was what I just wanted to talk about, just why I love pots. I love pots because I'm a potter myself, but I love looking at other people's pots and touching other people's pots and learning about other people's pots and other potters and other techniques in history. Roman archaeology is my thing. I love Roman archaeology. I'm doing a master's in it. I want to do a PhD related to it. But pottery is the other thing for me, and ceramics, and learning all about production, and yeah, the social life of pots. I am frustrated I'll never know the full story, but it lets my imagination go wild. I can make up all these scenarios regarding the life story of this pot, and that keeps me entertained. And sometimes I get some of the answers. Sometimes for example, I went to Alice Holt in Hampshire, and that's the site of Roman grey courseware pottery production for centuries, and you can still recover pots from there. So I know where those pots were made and who made them, the Romans, and from the decoration, whether or not it's had clay slip painted on it or the kind of decoration, we can get a guess at when it might be being made, and so I have part of the story there. and I know the kind of places they were supplying, because you find these Alice Holt wares in London. They were sent to Londinium, but they will have been supplying people all around the southeast as well. So I have part of the story there. I just don't have the last part of it. But with these pots, it's also interesting, these fragments that I find, because they are usually the bits that failed, the bits that broke in the kiln or broke in production or broke post-production, whatever. So they didn't actually go out into the world, a lot of these that I'm finding. These are the ones that were put on the waste pile. So their story is really short, but it kind of makes you think about frustration of pottery and how it's quite there's so many things that can go wrong, and so many frustrations in pottery itself, that you never ever count on. You can never say, I'm going to turn this clay into a pot and it will be successful, because I still have kiln explosions when my pots haven't dried out properly enough before I fire them, or have glaze fails, or I drop stuff as well. So it's just, that's kind of it tells you the story. Hang on a second, I need to pick my bottle of drink up because I think the dog's about to piss on it. Carlo, of course, because Carlo's always one who does that sort of thing. But it tells you the story of the frustrations of a potter as well. So that was a long ramble. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. I just thought I'd just do a silly video whilst I'm out in the back garden enjoying this refreshing rain, and I hope you all have a lovely day wherever you are, and if you fancy sending me some sunshine, please do. If not, I'm going to the US on Saturday, so I might even get some sun there. Mind you, I was looking at the weather forecast and it's saying rain and thunderstorms. Thunderstorms I love, rain I'm used to. I don't like it too hot. I just wanted a little bit of nice sun and a gentle breeze, but hey ho, I get what I get, and I will be indoors anyway because I'm going to do a pottery workshop for a week, but I will tell you about that in another video. So yeah, so stay weird, stay fascinated, and I will speak to you soon.